Morning, sir. Can you check out the library book? Oh, that's really interesting. Like I'm walking to a blind person.
I was like,
I know, I was like, okay, I'll find my name in a minute. Not gonna happen soon. but-
15-year-old Jordan was referred to multi-system.
I mean, I hear it coming out of the computer, but I don't hear it. But can you come help me for a second? Because I think there's a setting in Zoom where you have to share the computer audio, but I can't find it.
Hey, your Bengals had quite a run. Congratulations. Pretty impressive.
I feel like there's something there.
Hey, how are you? Good, how are you?
How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Oh, here.
Systemic therapy after he had been arrested for breaking into an empty house with a friend while high on his mother's.
I have that. I want to know is coffee that gets to do that sloshed around. So good to see you at this time. So the chief probation officer.
Days, yeah,
Some days.
first days.
Hey, how are you? You hanging in there?
Yes, yes.
Check, 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 audio check, 1, 2, 3.
How are you? Morning.
Who's coming?
I sent it to Dolan.
Well, thank you. I'm not surprised.
Morning, chief. I just got word from John's assistant. This is our first Zoom remote participant. We got a video display. Are they working on it now? Yeah.
I know it. You can go drink coffee sometime. All right.
Yeah.
got my water, got my glasses.
Listen, this is thrilling.
Do we have a forum?
I think we do. Okay.
Yeah. Got one online.
Oh, yeah.
So.
We have some good school partners.
Good. Who are you?
Morning. How are you? Good. How are you?
Ready to get on like level 6 back in?
Yeah. Oh, we're ready.
Okay. Julie, are we ready? Is tech ready?
Not quite.
No, there's probably-
Oh, yeah.
Let's go in the
It
world.
seems like there's someone here. That's empty today for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, a lot of
I probably have to review over 800 cases. In each case, it's a lot of cases.
It helps.
Where I chair the commission that's reviewing the justice statements for time.
Yeah, so they were very.
Rudy's just always clicking. Is he ever just clicking?
Okay, and he's always got something.
Yeah. Did you really great thing? But yeah, did you know that the judges in Alpha County?
That's their fourth grade university. They
Right there, it's right near.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I know exactly. Okay. Yeah, so what is she?
graphics and technology.
Okay, so she's.
Well,
I would
yeah,
have to-
she has a master's in architecture. Like someone.
You know, the graduates. We didn't want IUs, which was time. So we should have just. We, some of the officers, we've been really. But I was jealous when we made you turn your camera on last week. It's still executive.
Over 3 days.
All right. I usually say we'll go on the record, but you don't want to hear that here. We say we're ready to go on the record. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. We do have our members, Julie, who's participating via Zoom. One of our
Dejana.
Dejana is by Zoom. So good morning, Dejana. We have everyone, we have no new members today, right? Everybody's on.
Is your microphone on?
Yeah, the light's on. Can you? Is somebody sawing?
Yeah.
Are they sawing? Can we close? You cannot hear me in the audience? Can you hear me better like now?
No.
All right. Is this a microphone and for recording?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak as loud as I can. Can you hear me right now? I'm going to be whipped the rest of the day for my talking. All right, we'll start with welcome. We have no new members. I think everyone has been here, was here for the last meeting last year. Welcome and thank you for your work on the commission.
I don't think her mic's on.
Hello, so much better. Thank you. See, give it to Nurse Stigman to figure this out for me. This is my third time. It's an honor to chair the commission again. This is my third time chairing it. I was the original chair and then chaired it again. I have been on it throughout. The Indiana Supreme Court is very committed to the Children's Commission and are very appreciative of all the work that's being done around the state by hundreds of people serving and have served on the task force. So we've got a consent agenda going over the minutes from the December meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the devotion? Thank you, Doctor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the one item on the consent agenda, the minutes from the December meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Next is a strategic priority, juvenile justice and cross-system youth. Julie, you want to talk to us about the Juvenile Justice Reform Task Force bill?
Yes, good morning. I don't know, can people hear me? Okay, I just wanted to give us a quick update on the action you took in December. You all approved a set of recommendations from the Juvenile Justice Reform Task Force that were subsequently then written into a bill, which is 1359. That's making its way through the process. It passed the House. It passed its first committee in the Senate. It will be heard tomorrow morning in Senate Appropriations. The the main thing there's a couple of things I want you to know about that, or to kind of remind you, but the bill sets out several different projects basically for the commission or a body to be appointed by the commission. And the bill empowers the Chief Justice to appoint the members of those bodies. So that's something that we'll work through what that oversight body is going to look like, but what that group is going to be responsible for, and because it's under the commission will be responsible for, let me get my list.
If any of you in the back want to move up to an upper seat to hear better, please feel free.
There are several kind of projects. So we have to make a statewide juvenile justice data collection plan, develop policies and procedures on the use of risk and needs assessments, which of course we would work with the Office of Court Services on that because they already do some of that. Criteria for diagnostic assessments to happen through DOC, a statewide, just a little thing, a statewide behavioral health plan for juvenile justice involved youth, a plan for transitional services for kids coming out of DOC, and a plan for 2 grant programs. So it's a lot that's laid out for this oversight body, which again is going to be through the commission. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be great, a great bit of work, but that's what's coming. So I wanted you all to be aware of that. And then specifically as it relates to the next presentation we're going to have, one of the recommendations you approved in December was that there should be reintegration services when kids are coming back from DOC. We should have that. And one of the projects that I just listed is for this group to kind of develop what that will look like. In between, we've actually happily had a subcommittee that was already working on that issue through our Juvenile Justice and Cross System Task Force. They were already taking a look at reintegration, even a little bit broader than just DOC, kids coming back from detention, from residential, like what should that look like? So that's the presentation you're going to hear next, is some data and some recommendations around what is kind of the best practice for when kids are returning to the community from some kind of confinement. At this point, we're not talking about funding anything that is to be developed would ideally, I think the hope is be funded in the 2023 budget. And so therefore those things that require that type of funding wouldn't kick in until 2023, like
Julie, I have a
2023.
question, and maybe it's for Christine too. When you look at the juvenile JRAC funding, juvenile has been opened up for JRAC funding. So these reentry programs could possibly be funded out of JRAC. I'm saying, for juveniles.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I want to look into that because that's something that maybe there'd be funding earlier. And JRAC is again, that cross branch, Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council, because I've always found there was a big gap. You have children in DOC come home. Chris worked with my court when I was a juvenile judge, and we had a reentry, and that was the most effective means. And I always wondered if DOC has some funding that gets allocated to them through JRAC, and even short term through some of the CARES money. The DOC, is there anything that would be available? So
we don't have that now. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was one of my questions was going to be, how is this going to be funded?
Well, I'd like to look at DOC too, to see if, I mean, when you look at parole, which isn't what used to be parole instead of reentry, we know that reentry works, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder, Joel, because I think you'll do a great job when you come on, that these kids, the recidivism rate for kids when they come out of DOC is so high that there has to be a pocket somewhere. When I look at justice, JRAC funding, which is money that goes to DOC, but there's a different committee that delegates where that makes recommendations to DOC where that money goes. Do juvenile qualify for that pot of money?
No, because so we do have community corrections money. But right now there's just, that certain amount that's delegated to juveniles, and then with that 1006 money that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd have, there's discussions that would have to take place, or we'd have to figure out how to increase that juvenile piece.
All right.
So one of the provisions of 1359 is to develop a grant program for those services. And that local counties would have to sort of designate a multidisciplinary body to accept those grants, and the local JRACs are one of the options for that.
Chief,
Yes.
are we talking basically just state juvenile facilities or county or both?
Reentry, I think they're looking at reentry in this from just the state facilities, but they're also talking about residential and
Right.
county
So
facilities too.
1359 specifies only state, but I think you'll hear from our folks who've been studying it. They think it should be
Expanded to
broader.
include,
Right.
like your facility up in St. Joe County. All right,
okay.
that was my question. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we're going to hear from Joe Winnicky and Terry Decker. We're going to talk about the juvenile reintegration subcommittee.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's always a pleasure to be in front of you. And I think I know most everybody on the committee, except there's a couple of faces. My name's Joel Winnicky. I'm a senior level staff attorney with the Indiana Public Defenders Council. So yes, Bernice is my boss, so I better perform very well today. Terry Decker is my co-chair to the subcommittee on reintegration of youth that's under the Cross Systems Youth and Juvenile Justice Task Force underneath this commission, of course. And Casey Peterson is going to join me up here in a little bit. She was our data guru that's hopped on this. I should say Dr. Casey Peterson. She is studying with Matt Alsma here at IU and is a very good data specialist. And once we start working on 1359 data issues and things like this, I would highly recommend if there's some consulting work that needs to be done on juvenile data issues, that could be somebody that is in the short list. So youth reintegration. There we go, there's the button. First slide up, this is just a list of some of the resources that we used in order to look at the best practices to make recommendations to the commission today. There's a lot of resources online on this, but hopefully if you want to investigate this issue further, these are some of the resources to look into. So as I said, we're part of the Strategic Goal 4, which is the Cross Systems Youth and Juvenile Justice Task Force. Objective number 7 of the commission, which is to identify and encourage adoption of effective and promising practices to support youth transitioning back to their families and communities from corrections, secure detention, and residential placement. So that's the key. We just briefly talked about some things that are in House Bill 1359 that focuses on DOC, but our mission, as instructed by the commission, is broader than that. This is just a summary statement that I stole from some materials in Illinois that is a good summary of the problem that we're dealing with. And the reality that if we handle this reintegration problem properly and provide the resources that we need to, it's going to reduce recidivism. And that is one of the overall arching goals of the juvenile justice system, right? We're trying to make good citizens that are not going to engage in this behavior anymore. So the first recommendation in all of the materials is that reintegration starts at the beginning of the case, the beginning of the placement. It's not something that you start planning for when you're getting close to discharge, because once you've gotten to that point, it's a little bit too late. You've missed several key opportunities of family engagement and building skills in the youth that are necessary in order to come back out and be successful. This is the continuum of reintegration. And so as you can see, it reaffirms that it starts at the placement phase, continues all the way through, and at reentry itself, we're halfway through the reintegration process. So if we've started at that point, we're halfway behind the curve. These are the 4 main needs that are identified in the literature on youth reintegration and reintegration for adults as well. We have to be able to help them address mental health and substance use treatment, family engagement, targeted educational and employment opportunities, and housing and supports. So first, moving on to mental health and substance use treatment, more than half of youth who are placed in facilities have the criteria for 1 or more psychiatric or psychological disorder. That is not a shocker to the folks in this room, having dealt with this population, I'm sure. but approximately a third of the youth placed in those facilities also demonstrate a substance abuse disorder of some sort. Probably not overwhelmingly shocking as well. So the other concern that is repeatedly found in the literature is the realities of childhood trauma, which is a continuing theme in all of the efforts of this commission trying to deal with youth. And the reality is reintegration services have to be tailored to meet all of these three different needs and address all of those things. And so once again, that's the reason why we have to start while we're in the facility. If we aren't jumping on these mental health needs, the substance use needs, or the childhood trauma issues and restoring the child while they're in placement, we're really behind the curve. And even though that's what these facilities are oftentimes dealing with, it's key for the reintegration process as well. Family engagement is the next big overarching concept in the literature. Family and parenting plays a significant role. Some of these kids are coming from broken families that we know, but helping them develop that relationship with whatever their family is, whatever it looks like on the outside, is a very key component of reintegration. And so out of home placement interferes with that family relationship. And so one of our recommendations that you'll see is that we have to be able to provide that link between the family and the child while they're in placement. We know that some placements charge money for things like phone calls. Some placements sometimes use a severance of the connection with family, visitation with family, as a form of discipline from time to time. That's concerning, and I would hope that we would be able to not use that as a tool to manage behavior while a child's in the facility. So you should be placed close to home if at all possible. That's a key core principle of our juvenile code itself, that when we're looking at the proper placement, the judge is supposed to consider the relative distance to the home. Like I said earlier, phone calls with family should be encouraged. They need to be free, and the prohibition on family engagement contact needs to not be a behavioral management tool. The reintegration plan should be made with collaboration from youth and family. The family needs to be a part of that planning process and talking with the professional who is helping the child come up with that reintegration plan. And not only that, but some of these kids have very key relationships with mentors or other agencies that they've had before going into the placement. And so not only should there be connection with the family, but there needs to be that opportunity to connect with those key people in the child's life throughout the duration of the placement. Educational and employment programs, and the print is getting smaller as we're going through. There we go. So education and employment status, those are strong predictors of whether their child is going to engage in criminal or delinquent behavior once they get back out. So youth need to have an opportunity to have as close as possible a traditional school environment while they're in placement. Of course, it's going to be different. Class sizes are probably going to be different. Class structure is going to be different. But these facilities need to meet the Department of Education standards as much as possible. And they also need to mirror that school environment in whatever community the placement is in, if they can at all possible. While the child's in placement, we should be looking at employment training that's connected to the employment opportunities the child is going to be looking at upon return back into the community. That's another key recommendation. And strengths-based training and practical life skills training must be a part of each one of these placements. They need to be working with the kids with the realities that they're going to be facing and managing money, all the other aspects of career, whether that's applying for employment opportunities or whatever it might be. Housing supports. Most youth released from facilities are unprepared to take on these responsibilities of housing and income and education and future planning. I think most every family with kids in their own home these days knows that mom and dad are probably going to be a support net for a child on into the 20s at least. That's the common trajectory of the American family right now. The reality is, some of these kids are not going to have that family. That's the support network. So we really have to work hard to get them prepared for that opportunity to live and take care of themselves when they get out. The youth housing services need to encourage young people to develop these skills on their own so they can become self-sufficient. And the housing combined with services, once we connect that to the child, it will definitely have a positive effect and address the recidivism that these youth are facing. So this is just a reference back to the recommendation by the commission from the Juvenile Justice Task Force. It was adopted by the commission, and it focuses on reentry from the Department of Correction alone. I was not trying to point out or pick on Chris by any means. The reality is that's a very small subset of the youth that are going into placement or coming out of placement. We got another subset.
I missed a word. I didn't, it was a sawing.
Oh, yeah.
What's the small subset? The children coming out of DOC
Children coming out of
compared to
DOC.
residential and local detention?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a relatively small subset. Right now, I think the average daily population at the DOC is around 350.
285.
285.
Yeah.
Wow. It shrank considerably
Yeah.
in just the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, though, we have thousands of kids coming through the juvenile court system on any given day. I think the large portion of kids that are going into placement are going into that residential placement at this time. If they are going into residential placements, I'm not sure, but I think most of those are at least transitioning to be a qualified residential treatment program. So we can tap into those family first prevention dollars, preservation dollars. And by virtue of that, there should be a connection through that placement to 6 months of aftercare services. I am far from the expert on what those aftercare services have to provide to these families. But whenever we have a placement that is several counties away from the child's home county, I'm not sure if that's really an effective thing for that post placement return to home. And they may not have the connections to the community that the DOC might have by virtue of running a parole system that has connections with all 92 counties around the state.
So Jill, I just asked Terry, she said there's about 500 children today that are in residential placements. If you look at the 275 plus the 500, do we know how many kids are in local detention facilities on average a year? I know somebody collects that information. Corey, do you? 50,000?
Well, that would be nationwide.
Oh,
Yes,
that scared me for a minute.
I think that has to be nationally.
I know that the detention facilities have to send in how many. they have.
JDAI will have.
I know JDAI we could probably ask Nancy, she might have this. Oh,
Do you know what it was? Okay.
okay.
But with that, I think we need to transition into our statewide survey to be mindful of everyone's time.
Can I ask a quick question before we transition?
Yes.
So on the targeted education and employment programs, you talked about how the employment training should be connected to the child. It sounds like while they're at that facility.
Yes.
So just curious, because I'm thinking about all of our students, including these students. Do these students have access to work-based learning out in the community, or is it skill-based learning at the facility?
Well, it's going to depend on which facility that they're at. You know,
Okay.
if they're in the Department of Correction, there's probably not very many opportunities for going out to the community.
Okay.
I've only worked with one, maybe two youth who were actually able to earn an opportunity to go out into the community
Okay.
because it's just not a reality
Right.
that they can provide. Residential facilities will have more of those opportunities, but I think a lot of it is going to be that skill-based training in the actual
In
facility
the
itself.
facility.
And that could, household chores, responsibilities, dealing with things there in the facility would provide some of that training, but hopefully it's more than that.
Are there any best practices that you see in certain parts of the state that you would point to and say, hey, they're doing it really well?
No, I'm not knowledgeable about some of the better opportunities out there. I should probably have prepared something on that.
That's okay. I
Yes.
appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Senator Bro has a question.
Yes.
Just a quick one, Joel. Is there any kind of a parole program currently for kids who leave the Department of Corrections?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, Chris can answer that.
Yeah.
It's going to be, not every child goes on parole.
Right.
And we don't necessarily want every child to go on parole. Some of the kids are going to come back to juvenile court jurisdiction. I think if they're 17 and a half or younger, all those kids are on parole. Over the age of 17, no, not anymore.
No.
Okay, I'll let her field it.
Yeah. Yeah. So youth that are classified as high risk on the IAS are supervised on parole. We supervise youth that are sex offenders on parole. And we also supervise youth that are placed in residential programs after release on parole. But most of the kids in the Department of Correction are released for discharge. So yeah, services, continue to have services upon release is great. We just have to figure out who covers those. Are they on probation? Are they on parole? Because as I read this, it almost kind of sounds like what Chief Justice was talking about earlier about, the kids going back to the county and reassuming jurisdiction. So I guess that would be a question that I have also, is that what the intent of this is?
The recommendation of the juvenile task force was to be county-based opportunities for services. It was focused on DOC kids, but the focus was for the county to support those kids once they come out. The collaborative effort between the juvenile courts and the DOC that was originally in House Bill 1359 has been removed because of the juvenile court judges having some concerns over jurisdictional crossover. When a child is placed in the Department of Correction, the statute says that the jurisdiction transfers to the Department of Correction, which is a good thing because we want them to be able to take care of daily behavioral issues, programming issues. And sometimes the juvenile court judge is not going to have that knowledge as to what the DOC can provide and should be doing on a day-to-day basis. But I was really hoping that there could be some sort of a concurrent jurisdictional opportunity to where DOC is in charge of day-to-day, but it still creates that connection so probation officers can check in on the kids and figure out if there's a need to step in and fulfill that role on the back end, other than, they get information reports. I think there's a 60-day letter and a 10-day letter at the end. And before programming starts, there's a letter from intake explaining what programs is supposed to happen. But in between those, is there a lot of updates to the court?
Yeah, that's a legislative gap. I think when we have the oversight, when we take this bill and we implement it, that there's a gap with regard to, there's not concurrent jurisdiction. Is the best practice to require resumed jurisdiction, and which kids should you, there's a lot of questions based on this that still have to be answered, but there is a gap in that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have to keep in mind that in order for services to be covered, they have to be tied to something. So whether it's probation, whether it's DOC, if it's DOC, then DOC covers that. So that's when you talk about funding and where that comes from and where that goes, that's an important piece to remember also.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does. And I think you may have mentioned this. Is it always, are they always returned to the jurisdiction of their home? Because sometimes isn't it better to get them out of those environments, maybe relocate them?
Well, if the family is still involved in their life, the child's
Okay.
going to be returned to the family. That's the key thing, is we want to make sure that we rebuild that family and get them returned to that family. There are still problems in the community that the children will be facing, and there's some bad influences sometimes that may have caused the DOC placement. That's always going to be a struggle.
Thank you.
All right, Corey,
I just wanted to share that Nancy shared with me for the JDAI sites, which is 33 counties. We represent 73% of all of the youth in Indiana. The average daily population for 2021 was 203 for secure detention.
statewide,
Average daily population, just for the JDAI.
just for
sites.
those 33 counties, okay,
Correct.
So
312. Thank you.
All right, so I'll get started talking about the survey we conducted. We conducted a survey with providers.
You're gonna have to
across the
speak up.
state.
Can you in the back hear her? No.
Sorry. We conducted a survey with providers across the state in order to get a better understanding of their perspectives as to whether Indiana were meeting these standards for reintegration. So just to give you a little bit of an understanding of who ended up taking this survey, we had 266 participants across the state. This primarily included probation officers and judges, which is ideal since they're usually involved as a part of that process. To a lesser extent, we had legal representation and then kind of a smattering of individual staff members operating within these facilities. Most often, people worked across all 4 areas of reentry that we were looking at, so detention, residential, shelter care, as well as through the Department of Corrections. So we wanted to get an understanding of to what extent the reentry plans that were being done were consistent with areas of the evidence base. So most people indicated addressing 4 areas within their reentry planning services, and most often that included returning to school, mental health care, substance use treatment, as well as the living arrangement. To a much lesser extent, that included things like vocational skills, as well as medical health care and legal services. So to orient a little bit to how we ask questions within the survey, in regard to each of these evidence-based areas that Joel talked about earlier, we asked how competent people felt about addressing these needs pre-release, as well as the availability and accessibility of these services to youth post-release. So questions were asked on a 5-point Likert scale. It just means they answered from 0 to 4, where this is not at all happening, to very. We considered scores below 3 to not be consistent with the evidence-based practices. If somebody indicated 3, that meant they were moderately competent, services were moderately available or moderately accessible. And given the importance of getting these services to youth, we felt that that was the benchmark we should at least be trying to reach for these kids. So we're looking at average scores here. So averaged across all of the participants in each of these evidence-based areas. So in regards to competence, so how competent individuals felt they were addressing these needs pre-release, you can see that across all areas of evidence-based planning, we're below that benchmark of 3. Respondents felt most competent addressing educational needs, getting pretty close to that benchmark, but felt least confident in addressing housing needs for these kids. A 1 is about a somewhat. They were somewhat able to address these needs. In areas of availability, so are there services around where kids can actually get to them? Again, educational services were most available and housing services were least available. You can see that again, we're below that benchmark of 3 and more decidedly so than in the previous slide. Hopefully that on your handout that looks a little more clear. But on average, people did not necessarily feel that these services were available in their communities. And finally, in areas of accessibility, so when these services are available, can families and kids actually get to them? Again, educational services were most accessible and housing services were least accessible. And then we did look at differences by rurality, and I think this is unsurprising that areas of family engagement, housing support, mental health care, as well as recreational services were least available and accessible in rural areas, which I believe is probably consistent with what we would expect. So to sort of summarize, kind of just let you know what all this data is really telling us, the results indicate some widespread difficulties with reentry planning for these kids. Educational services were most competently addressed and believed to be the most widely available and accessible. This makes sense given kind of the infrastructure of our public schooling system, as well as just the important and like legal requirements for youth to be in school. However, housing and living arrangements upon entry were considered the most challenging to address. So this is a really big problem given that they need a place to live. And if you don't have stable living, it's difficult to access all of these other things involved in evidence-based planning. If you don't have a stable living arrangement, it's hard to make it to your therapy appointments, to make it to school and all these other things. And overall, the availability of services was the most primary concern. So compared to the areas of competence, as well as the accessibility of services in place, respondents rated the availability of these services lowest. Difficulties with availability and accessibility are exacerbated in rural communities. We used these survey results to help us formulate the recommendations that Joel will go over now.
We have almost 10 minutes left. Good. So here are the recommendations that we came up with. So even though this recommendation refers back to the DOC recommendation that was adopted from the task force, it's really just trying to articulate this has to be a broad spectrum opportunity for reintegration services for all the kids in the system. There's nothing special about the DOC kids that means that they need more reintegration necessarily than what a kid who's been in placement. And as we know, placements can sometimes last longer than even a DOC commitment and can involve some more challenging issues, especially when we're talking about issues with kids who can't return back to the home if there's a sex offender issue or other issue with another child in the home. That's when these issues become a very, very important. Number two, that's the consequence of having a public defender be a part of this and making recommendations. No, this is the National Juvenile Justice Defense or National Juvenile Defender Standards and our own standards. The Indiana Public Defender Council, working with Karin Lewitt, came up with some standards about 10 years ago, recommending that counsel stick with your clients in the juvenile justice system all the way until the juvenile court says the child is discharged from jurisdiction. That is not happening. And it's kind of an outlier because if you think about the CHINS TPR system, those who know and understand what it is, a lot of those cases are really just getting going once you get to the dispositional order and start that process of working with services and rebuilding the family. But yet then we'll have in those same communities, sometimes the public defender is discharged or, allowed to get off the case at the point of the dispositional order. So one of the recommendations under House Bill 1359 is that the Judicial Conference come up with probation standards for the juvenile justice system. And so this could be another good opportunity to address probation standards as it applies to this population, the population who has hopefully successfully completed a placement opportunity already and is transitioning back out. There may be a need of supervision at like some level from probation, but hopefully this could be an opportunity for a step back, lower level type of supervision that is more supportive and less rules-based, punitive-based support. On to the next page. This is a recommendation to tie in the concept of reintegration to the community-based grant funding opportunities that are structured in House Bill 1359. So that those grant funding opportunities are going to be overseen initially by the Criminal Justice Institute, but then each one of the counties working alongside some of the JRAC type things that they're doing already are going to be encouraged to tap into those grant funding dollars to create community-based mental health opportunities and hopefully other corresponding opportunities for not just the front end and the middle part of the case, but this back end, the very last phase of the juvenile court process. And lastly, I hope that you'll communicate these recommendations, and I'm sure you will if you adopt them, to the Juvenile Justice Oversight Body that is to be created if House Bill 1359 passes.
So Julie, this is a motion for us to accept these recommendations today?
Yes,
This is
there
an
is
action
a
item?
request for you all to approve the recommendations. There's a recommendation form in your packet
Yes.
that outlines the items that Joel just mentioned.
So any questions for Joel or Terry?
And
Thank you for the presentation.
I do have a question for the group. I've noted in the first recommendation that it should be for any child who has been removed from that home for a period of X days or more. The research that I did was unable to show a recommendation as to how long a child must be in placement before we start thinking about this concept of reintegration. So that's not really a decision that I wanted to make for the commission itself. But I don't know if that decision needs to be made today. That could be potentially something that's studied by that Juvenile Justice Oversight Body.
There's no, is there data on that? Is there any national data? Have any organizations, Pew
So-
or Arthur or Casey?
The data usually focuses on the time length for the reintegration process itself.
Not the time out
Not
of
really
home.
discussing how long a child needs to be in placement before we start thinking about this concept of reintegration. The realities that I would focus on are even a short placement can be disruptive of that family relationship, school opportunities, other opportunities like that. And not only that, but a large portion of the kids that are going into a placement are already going to have deficits in all of those key areas that are part of reintegration. So I would hope that it would be a short number if there is a number that needs to be recommended at all.
All right, so the recommendation are with regard to these recommendations, realizing that the length of time needs to be studied before what would trigger this action. So is there any questions?
So
Yes.
Thank you,
Chris.
Chief Justice.
Mhm.
Thank
It's
you.
like being in a dentist's office, isn't it? And you're being drilled. There's
You gotta
nothing we can
focus
do. We
there.
can't tell them, take a lunch break.
I did just email the state library guy who helps
Okay.
with the rec to see if he can get him to move somewhere
Hey,
else.
Move down those windows on this side. I mean, they're right there.
I
They're- Yeah.
Oh.
It's restaurant day over at the State House. Send them over to,
Oh, is it really?
yes.
Oh, wow.
I know, and I've got meetings all the way through it. Okay.
thank you.
yes, Chris.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Thank you, Joel and Terry. This was really helpful information. I appreciate the survey. It was a good sample size. One thing that stood out from the survey was the category of employment. And there were low scores on accessibility and availability. And I just, I can understand if we're in a triage situation, but this was measuring accessibility and availability. So I just wonder if anyone has any plannings, whether through JDAI or elsewhere, and partnering with Department of Workforce Development, Indiana Chamber of Commerce, trade associations to meet that need.
I don't have specific plans for that, but those are all great ideas. So this survey process was over with 4 or 5 months ago. Of course, educational opportunities are a fluid concept in most communities. I think, the key is hopefully the local communities, the probation officers, whatever community mental health services or mentor programs that are in those facilities can make connections with work opportunities who are willing to take on youth who have a history of juvenile justice issues and make it a part of the process. And, there's some really good employers in places like Indianapolis with Greg Kiesling's group,
Recycle Force.
Recycle Force, things like that. I wish we had about 50 other Recycle Forces around the state of Indiana, making it a mission to connect people with employment and rebuilding them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to do this across the spectrum in criminal justice. We have a lot of job openings now. You've got people under supervision, whether it's adult going through a problem-solving court and juveniles. And where I'm actually seeing some successful models of job courts. But I look at probation. When you've got a child under probation with regard to helping them get that employment, making those connections, it has to be the next wave. I think there's a lot of work that has to be done.
You know,
Because I mean, it's been shown that if you have a child who has an after-school job or has a job, their risk factors go down quite a bit.
And I had an interesting interaction just in my work with someone at Job Corps, not wanting to take on a child with a juvenile adjudication for battery because that showed a propensity for violence. And I'm not sure they understood how broadly the battery statute could apply, especially when we're dealing with children who are in the school setting and things like that. So maybe that's part of the process, is working with those types of providers to ensure that they're not afraid to take on a kid with a battery adjudication.
I mean, it's going to take probation, public defenders, prosecutors to say in their case plans, dispositional recommendations that employment is going to, and with regard to job coaches or mentors, it has to be done. So, I mean, I think, again, they've got this standalone body that's going to oversee all juvenile justice children, and this is tens of thousands of children a year. I think we need to look at employment. All
So
right.
I would have a question about these recommendations too. So as we're voting on these recommendations, are we voting on the concept of the recommendations and not the specific? Because there's still a lot of details, I think, that need to be worked out.
There was this presentation. Yeah, it's all going to be, it would be conceptual. We are approving these recommendations to be submitted to the oversight committee for further
Okay.
work.
Okay, thank you.
So the motion would be that we are recommending we're recommending submitting these recommendations to the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee with regard to for further work to be done. But so conceptually, if you're not in agreement with all these recommendations, now would be the time to say that. So if there's one that stands out to you, this one, no, we can make the motion, see where the majority lies. So is there a motion to accept the full recommendations? All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting all the recommendations being submitted to the juvenile as approved by, conceptually approved by the Children's Commission, being submitted to the yet to be formed Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee, raise your hand. This is a public vote. It looks like it was unanimously approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, on schedule. The next we are going to hear about strategic priority child health and, no, I'm sorry, strategic priority mental health and substance abuse. Dr. Gabriela Rodriguez from IU School of Medicine is going to make a presentation on, I call it MST, but multi-systemic therapy pilot program. Welcome, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate all of your time. I will do my best to modulate my volume as needed to make sure that everybody can hear me okay. So let me,
just keep moving forward.
keep moving. Okay. So I'm Dr. Rodriguez. I am a child psychologist at Riley, and I'm also assistant professor of clinical psychiatry at IU School of Medicine. But I'm here today in my role as the co-chair of the Enhancing Access to Evidence-Based Mental Health and Addiction Interventions for Youth, very long title for the subcommittee. And I just want to also make sure that I'm thanking my colleague, Tom Peitkevitz at MSC Services for helping me put together this presentation. So really, I'm here to kind of share some really great news that this program is happening. And so I'll tell you a little bit about kind of how we got started. So we'll start out by talking about that. Then I'm going to share with you a little bit about what multisystemic therapy is all about. Talk a little bit about some of the evidence that it has, like over 20 years of evidence. Talk a little bit also about the referral population served. So who are the kids that are going to be benefited by this program? Also a little bit about the benefits to the state of this type of MSC program, and also some next steps. And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So this all really started when we established a subcommittee as part of the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Task Force. So initially in 2019, I became co-chair of this subcommittee along with Mark Canola from the Department of Correction. And then more recently, Ty Rollison from Choices Coordinated Care Solutions has been my other co-chair. So thank you very much to both of them. So really, when we started this subcommittee, we started by talking with stakeholders across the state about what are some of the gaps that they've been seeing in evidence-based care for youth. And what we learned There you go. What we learned was that there was really a major gap for youth with severe conduct problems or severe delinquency. Really, the case was that for these youth, outpatient services were not enough. So being seen by an outpatient therapist weekly or even every couple of weeks just was not enough for them. But they weren't ineligible for inpatient services because they weren't at imminent suicidal or homicidal risk. And then these youth oftentimes had not yet been involved with juvenile justice and were not at the time involved with DCS. So really, they just had nowhere to go. Outpatient wasn't working for them, and these other services were not, they weren't eligible for these other services. And we're not talking about a small group here. So we know that about 10% of Indiana youth have a behavioral or conduct problem, and this is higher than the nationwide average of 7%. It's also not cheap. So conduct disorder is the 33rd most costly diagnosis in Indiana, and it totals annual Medicaid claims total over $14 million for these youth. So at that time, there were no available MST services in the state, and the stakeholders that we were talking to were really interested in starting something like MST, but just needed support to get these programs going. And so late last year, thanks to the stimulus funding that came through, we were actually able to kind of develop this program. And so really this is a partnership between the state of Indiana, the Division of Mental Health and Addictions, IU School of Medicine, and MST Services, which is the group that really helps with fidelity and implementation of MST. And so DMHA actually invested $2 million in funding this statewide implementation that's going to run through the next year. I'll talk with you a little bit more about what that's all about later. So what is MST? Kind of raise your hand if you're familiar with MST. I just want to get a sense of, okay, great. So a few folks are familiar with
Mountain
it.
Standard Time.
So it's funny because when I Google MST, oftentimes I have to like spell it out for that reason. Otherwise I get lots of details about Mountain Standard Time that I don't necessarily need for this. So multisystemic therapy, or MST, is really a family-focused, community-based treatment program to prevent youth who are exhibiting severe conduct problems, severe externalizing behaviors, delinquent behaviors from entering out-of-home placements. That's really the ultimate goal of a program like this. So in MST, therapists work in the home, in the school, in the community. And one thing that really makes MST stand out is that therapists are on call 24/7. And really that's very important because I know in my own clinical work that crises can't be scheduled, right? I'm in clinic 8 to 5, but that's not necessarily when crises are happening for these families. And so these therapists are on call 24/7 for these families and are able to go out and serve the family where they're at, right? Kind of meet them where they're at. And MST is the only intervention for high-risk youth that has been really repeatedly replicated by independent research teams. So this isn't just the developers who've been testing it, it's folks across the world really who've been looking at the effectiveness. And so these are just some statistics that I think are really striking. And so this is just kind of a little bit old, so 2018 data, but what they found was that the close of treatment for over 13,000 youth that were served by MST at that point, 91% were living at home, 86% were in school or were working, and 87% had no juvenile arrests, right? So talk about prevention. And this is a really cool, I think, really cool data here, looking at 22 years post-treatment, which is really rare to be able to find long-term data, so far after completion of a treatment program. But really what they found, again, another striking data piece here is 75% fewer violent arrests for youth who had participated in multisystemic therapy, 33% fewer days in adult confinement, 33% fewer arrests overall. And other things that maybe we don't necessarily always think about, but are really important for youth long-term success, things like family instability and financial problems were also improved for youth who had participated in MST compared to standard therapy. MST has also been shown to have really important substance use outcomes. So this is from an implementation that happened in the state of Connecticut. The Department of Children and Families there actually funded a statewide implementation of MST. And what they found in 1,200 youth served, I know this is fairly small, so I'm going to actually look at my little chart here, so I can also read it. So I'll read those numbers to you because I don't think you can see them. So 98% of youth had no new arrests for drug-related offenses at the end of treatment. 77% of youth were actually drug-free for the last 30 days of treatment. And 80% of youth who had a history of substance use actually demonstrated a clear reduction in that substance use. So really clear substance use outcomes as well as the other outcomes that we've already discussed. Yeah.
What type of drugs were they using there? Is it marijuana? Is it something heavier?
I think it runs the gamut. Yeah, it would be interesting to look at data that breaks it down by different type of substance. I can definitely get that to you, but I believe this is all substances put together. Yeah, great question. And I think the other thing to think about is that Connecticut may have some different substance use problems than we do in Indiana, right? I think we may have some more difficulties in that area. So importantly, multisystemic therapy is one of only 2 programs that have been categorized as well supported by research evidence, which is the highest scientific rating that they give out by the California Evidence-Based Clearinghouse. The other thing is, since 2014, is MST has been classified as an effective treatment by NIDA, or the National Institute for Drug Abuse. In addition to these outcomes that have been looked at here, MST has been implemented in over 15 countries, over 34 states, and over 200,000 youth have participated in MST at this point. And it has a really strong body of evidence, right? Which was really important to us as the evidence-based subcommittee, right? That was exactly what we were looking for, is a program that not only, we knew had evidence for sustainability and fidelity in the long term, but just that initial really great evidence base. So over 140 peer-reviewed journal articles really made MST stand out in our search for effective interventions. The other thing that's really important is that MST does not just help the youth. It also is really effective in helping the family. So if we're looking here on the left-hand side, we can see percent rearrests for youth who participated in MST versus youth who completed individual treatment. The darker box here on the left-hand side are felony arrests. The middle kind of blue teal box is misdemeanor arrests, and the box on the right is any crime. And so you can really see the staggering differences here between the youth who completed MST to completed regular individual treatment in terms of percent rearrest. But if you look toward the right, you can also see some outcomes that were happening for the rest of the family, right? So a 40% reduction in overall sibling arrest rates, 55% reduction in sibling felony arrests, and 94% fewer caregiver felonies. Huge impact here for the family. So who is MST for? So MST is effective for youth between 12 and 18 years of age who are at risk of a severe system consequence, pretty broadly defined, due to serious externalizing behaviors. Again, also pretty broadly defined. These are some examples of the behaviors that may make a youth eligible for multisystemic therapy. Could be things like theft or other criminal behaviors, aggression, assault, those types of behaviors, substance use, selling substances, chronic school absences, those types of things. And then when we're talking about system consequences, typically we're talking about out-of-home placement, and that can happen lots of different ways, as you all know. Could be things like juvenile justice involvement, involvement with DCS, things like that. School expulsion, other things. So we've talked about the benefits of multisystemic therapy for the individual use. We've talked about benefits for their family, but what about states who've implemented this? So New Mexico actually did a pretty cool outcomes tracking project across time following their statewide implementation of MST. And they found really cool data. So one thing that they found was, so backing up a little bit, this is from 2005 to 2019 that they tracked over 6,000 youth who completed MST. But what they actually found was that for every dollar that they spent on multisystemic therapy, they actually recovered $1.34 in reduced Medicaid claims within 2 years after completion of that MST treatment. So pretty quick turnaround on that investment. They also found an additional kind of $4.50 saving per dollar spent in reduced crime rate expenses. And this doesn't even account for the benefits that we just discussed for the caregiver and the siblings who are participating, or of the child who's participating in MST. So what are our next steps for our implementation? So we are in the process right now of recruiting provider agencies who are interested in participating. And so we're planning to subcontract with up to 8 different provider agencies, hopefully across the state. Really, our goal is that every child in the state of Indiana is able to access an MSC program within an hour of their home. So we're really looking for that broad geographical spread. So providers are required to have at least one full MST team to participate with us in this implementation. And that includes 1 supervisor and 2 to 4 full-time therapists. That piece is really important, that the therapists are fully dedicated to MST, again, because of that 24/7 nature of their availability to families. And we expect that they have contact with families several times a week, as opposed to, for example, the type of work that I do where I see families weekly or every other week. And so IU School of Medicine and MSC Services, we're going to work directly with the provider agencies to make sure that we're providing ongoing supervision and consultation so that the agencies are implementing MSC with fidelity. We know that fidelity is absolutely essential to getting these outcomes that we just talked about. So we want to make sure that we're making the best of our investment by making sure fidelity is one of the things we're really focusing on. And again, in terms of protecting our investment, we're really making sure that we're working with provider agencies, or the plan is to work with provider agencies to make sure everybody has a funding sustainability plan, right? One thing that we want to make sure happens is if we get all of these programs going and communities get used to having these programs, that they're really sustainable and available to families across time, not just for this initial year. All right, so now, I'm going to show you a video. This was developed by MSC Services, and I think it does a really nice job. It's just a few minutes, I think 5 to 6 minutes. I think it does a really nice job of briefly explaining what multisystemic therapy is all about.
While she's doing that, how many therapists are licensed in MST in Indiana now? Do you know?
So right now, as of this morning, what I've learned is that there is 1 standard MSC team that just went orientation training at Choices with Ty Rollison, and that's it.
We used to have MST in Tippecanoe County.
Yes, we used to have it in Tippecanoe County. Rebecca Humphrey's group was doing that, and unfortunately, they were not able to keep it going sustainably. And so we're talking with, I'm actually meeting with them on Friday to talk about how we could, potentially get that program started again.
It was really effective, particularly with high-risk children. It's been so slow going in Indiana on getting it done. Are you, like, Jay's not here today, but are you talking to the community mental health providers with regard to, it looks like you're talking to different agencies, but not the statewide community mental health, or are you talking to, are they
So the announcement just went out on Monday for this, this particular implementation. So it was funded, we received the funding late last year, but the announcement, Cyrilla Blackman just sent it out to the interagency emails Monday. And we've already had, like, I think 8 agencies reach out and say that they're interested. So I do think, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So I know part of the challenge is that it was cost prohibitive. It was extremely expensive to get it going and to maintain it. So the funding has been a huge help to get it going again. Also, the 4E Prevention Services Clearinghouse, MST, is well supported for Family First. And that happened, I believe in 2020, that it was rated as well supported. So as it gets going, there is a potential for sustainability financially if we can get them going with providers that serve DCS families.
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea is that, what we're thinking is going to be making these programs sustainable now is that, right? So with the Family First funding, that will hopefully be accessible because MSC is well supported. We also could potentially, agencies could use family preservation funding from DCS, which that per diem rate, from what I'm hearing from agencies, seems to be a better fit for sustainability for this type of thing. But also the kind of
Medicaid
traditional
does not fund MST right now.
So currently, you can bill to Medicaid, like traditional therapy codes, but not the Medicaid specific
Which is
code
the
that other
hours. So the
states
hours that MST requires, you're not going to get reimbursed. You're going to just for traditional therapy.
Right, so just the traditional therapy, but not all of the hours that you would have to do for MST. And what other states have done in that regard is an enhanced Medicaid rate that's specific for MST. And I think they estimate it's about 60 hours a week, actually.
I mean, I would venture to say a large percentage of the 500 children that are in a residential, I mean, if they had home-based MST services, would not be in residential at the cost of $500-600 a day
Yeah, I would agree with that.
or more.
One of your slides indicated that there's a 36% reduction in arrest rates for children engaged in MST. I think I'm remembering that right. Can you explain, or can you account for how that is happening? Is it because children who are involved in MST, the adults around them are less likely to call the police and they're more likely to call the therapist? Or is it because the therapists are working collaboratively with law enforcement entities to handle calls about the children differently, or is it something else?
That's a really great question. I think it's probably multiple factors. I do think one of them that makes a lot of sense is the idea that, you know, when a family is in crisis and they have a therapist to call, they are likely going to call that therapist rather than the police, right? I don't think that's been looked at systematically in the research, but it's certainly a plausible explanation for what might be going on. I do know that a lot of the places where MSC has been implemented, it is really a community-wide thing. Like schools are involved, you know, probation officers are involved, juvenile justice is involved. And so whenever possible, MSC is where, you know, kids are sent. So I do think that makes a lot of sense. And the video is actually going to talk a little bit about the kind of suite of services that MSC provides. And I think one big piece is parents' skill training. And so working with parents on behavior management strategies and things like that, so that they can kind of manage their own household, I think also is likely to lead to improved behavior, you know, directly. And so therefore fewer arrests, but lots of factors I think at play. Yeah.
Real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Real quick question. Along the same slide that Bernice was referencing, you have that 3% fewer financial problems. You know, that just jumps out to me, as I know financial problems are a lot of the cause of some of the difficulties that people have. That's a very low number overall. Is that something that you all are concerned about or focused on, or?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. My initial thought is that this is 22 years post-treatment. I don't have the data on this. I think MSC Services may be looking at this now, but I don't think it's out yet. But I do think that financial problems may look different. That figure may look different immediately after treatment, right? It may not be that the financial problem improvement lasts a couple of decades, but maybe initially after. And typically the services that MSC provides that I think would lead to improved or, you know, fewer financial problems are things like household planning, budget planning, education, those types of services that are also part of multi-systemic therapy.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to get to more than 3% for sure. Thank you for all your questions.
"15-year-old Jordan was referred to multi-systemic therapy after he had been arrested for breaking into an empty house with a friend while high on his mother's prescription pain medication. In addition to drug use, he also had a history of fighting, skipping school, and running away from home. Jordan didn't care what he did or where he would end up. When his mom expressed her concern for him, he always stated that he simply just didn't give a. But more than anything, Jordan's mom feared he would end up incarcerated just like his father, who had been locked up since Jordan was 10 years old. Multi-systemic therapy, MST for short, is what saved Jordan from following in his father's footsteps. Here's how. Instead of placing a youth away from home only to release them back into an environment where nothing has changed, MST treats the problem within a youth's natural ecology, their home, school, and community. When a youth starts multi-systemic therapy, a key process they will go through with their family and therapist is a FIT assessment. The FIT, as it is commonly called, is an MST tool that helps understand problematic behaviors by identifying what is driving them. By following the MST FIT assessment process, it makes it easier to prioritize which behaviors and drivers to target first, and then properly develop measurable treatment goals. Jordan's most troubling actions usually happened when he had left home, so his family and therapist decided to target that behavior first. His fit circle for running away from home looked something like this. Jordan and Mom sometimes fight because Mom tells Jordan that she doesn't want him to end up in prison like his dad. Jordan gets upset when his mom says this because he misses his dad and doesn't know how to have a better relationship with his mom. Mom doesn't know where Jordan goes, doesn't know how to find him to get him to come home, lacks skills, and feels hopeless. Mom doesn't know Jordan's peers. Supervision gaps when Mom is at work, so Jordan can run away before she gets home. There are no clear expectations, rules, and consequences for Jordan's behaviors. Jordan is not involved in pro-social activities with pro-social peers. After carefully analyzing Jordan's fit circle, the drivers his therapist and the family agreed to prioritize first were: there are no clear expectations, rules, and consequences for Jordan's behaviors. Mom is unsure how to find him and get him to come home, lacks skills, and feels hopeless. Jordan is unsure how to communicate with his mom, so they have conflicts. The goals identified were that 1. Jordan's mother would set clear expectations with matching consequences and rewards. And 2. Jordan would work to communicate with his mother and express his emotions in a healthy way. For Jordan's mom, being the only parent in the house made her feel hopeless. However, the therapist helped her get the confidence she needed to put clear expectations and consequences in place. The first was that Jordan would be allowed to go out with friends, only if he was home on time and shared his location with her on his phone. If he complied, he would get extra time to spend with friends over the weekend. But if not, his phone service would be turned off. Jordan did not like the sound of this at first, getting defensive and verbally aggressive about having his things taken away. The MST therapist, who was on call at 10 p.m. when the conflict occurred, understood Jordan's frustration because he was not used to having consequences. Together, the therapist and Jordan's mother explained how we all have consequences for our actions, even adults, and the importance of being held accountable. After an empathetic conversation, Jordan calmed down and realized he needed his phone service on in order to personally call his dad and stay in touch with his friends. So he soon adhered to this. After learning more about Jordan, his therapist noticed it's for families and communities.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. Yeah. Madam Chair. Ma'am. Is there a kid that this doesn't help?
That's a great question. So from my conversations with the folks at MST, I think one group that hasn't kind of had as good success with MST is youth who are involved with gangs. They are in the process of kind of figuring out what that might be and developing an MST that's specific to help with youth who are involved in gangs. But that's one group that I would say is not as good of a target for MST as others.
I found you had to have a parent, at least have somebody show up for MST if they're in the home. It didn't work when I didn't have a parent that could start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you found that? I mean, if you've seen that as well.
Yeah, I think to be able to participate in MST, the child has to be living in the home with a
Or
parent.
in kinship, it could be with kinship.
It could be with kinship.
grandma.
Yeah, it has to be a caregiver that's involved. Yeah, but absolutely. If there is no consistent adult in that child's life to actually develop these types of systems, to track things like curfew rewards and things like that, it's going to be really challenging for something like this to work. That's a really big piece of the puzzle.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Well, thank you. I was just asking Terry about DCS, Family First money, JD, kids getting this, because I mean, I've personally found it very effective for some really high-risk kids.
Yeah, we're really excited. And I think that's our hope, is that we'll be able to group all of these different funding streams together to make this really sustainable for the agencies across the
And
state.
Family First, if it's, we'll pay 50% back to the state.
For well-supported programs.
Yeah, for well-supported programs. And MST is a well-supported program. So yes.
Is DMHA going to do the oversight with regard to make sure they're staying faithful to because that's key, right? To get the reimbursement, the program's got to meet all its.
Right. Yeah, so MST Services actually does that. So we're contracting with them to provide that support for agencies. So they do monthly tracking of all of specific fidelity measures, and then they provide unlimited support to agencies to make sure that they're back up to fidelity if they're kind of straying away. And so that part is really nice, is that it's not something that we have to kind of develop on our own. We can kind of access that existing system.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Chief. That helps a little bit because I am trying to understand. Thank you for being here. This looks like really good outcomes, looks like a good formula. As a non-healthcare professional, I'm trying to understand what's distinct about MST Services, this branding. I assume it's a for-profit organization.
I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
I think the difference from my, having ordered it so many times, it's in the home. It goes to where the children and the family are.
Yeah.
And it's available 24 hours as opposed to having, I'm going to meet with my therapist or my counselor or my group next week. It's home-based or school-based or kinship-based.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to understand because I think we heard at a recent committee meeting from these mobile units. And so is this something more than just 24/7 access? Is it more than just best practices in terms of good therapy? Or is this just ease of use? Hey, this is a prepackaged program.
It's teaching,
so-
but I'm just lay, it's teaching parenting, it's teaching the conflict resolution. When things are about ready to blow up in the home,
Yeah.
where a child's got to be placed outside the home, they learn to trust the team of people, because you might have different people on staff to come in and diffuse it to keep the child from running away, criminal behavior, drug use.
And I would add that I think part of the reason so the reason I don't know the answer to that is I actually work for IU School of Medicine. But I think the piece that is really helpful when running this type of implementation, for example, is that because the system for tracking fidelity is there and they provide it, that makes it so that it's more consistent and therefore more effective, right? So we know that if we start to implement things, the state doesn't have the capacity, right, to be kind of tracking all of these things, this fidelity tracking over time. A lot of times what happens is we lose that fidelity and therefore the effectiveness over time. So I think that's one piece that's helpful with MST services. The other thing is that it's a family of services, right? No pun intended, right? So you can get things like family therapy, individual child therapy, parent skills training, and all of those things that typically would be separate services, but now they're happening all kind of within one system or one team.
Thank you,
Great
Doctor.
questions.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have one question, sorry. As we talk about serving kids who are not system involved or diverting kids from the system under the Juvenile Justice Reform Bill, is there funding other than Medicaid dollars that could serve kids that aren't involved in the juvenile justice or child welfare system currently?
That aren't involved in Medicaid or juvenile justice or child welfare. Well, I think we could bill to any insurer, right? So as long as the child is insured, I think, the MSC team could get billed to whatever the insurer is. I think the challenge is that for this to be sustainable for agencies, there's going to have to be a mix of funding streams, because just billing to insurers, giving the intensity of the service, is not going to be enough.
So as we look at future funding or grant opportunities, blended or braided funding that may reserve a pot of funds for a population that didn't have funding, may be a way to build and sustain a program like this?
Yes, very much so.
We're going to have a mental health summit with teams from every county dealing with court-involved individuals. The criminal justice system is the #1 referral source to get people to treatment other than self, which is a sad factor. So we're going to be bringing some tools, and we're doing it in line with the legislature and the governor's office, in line with 988 and local JRACs, with how we, at all the intercepts that mental health hit within our community, a lot of them are court involved. I mean, we're ordering services that may or may not be effective. I mean, that's what keeps me up at night. We're putting dispositional, things that maybe they're not faithful to the program. That's why, Justin, we need a behavioral health specialist that works for the court. I just texted him that, because we're such a referral source, and we don't, I can't say we're top notch on the services and the placements that we put children based on recommendations that are coming at us all day. So
I was just curious, because you said, I think I heard you say that most of the kids that you deal with have not had contact with the criminal justice system. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
So MST is available to kids before they have had contact with the juvenile justice system. And that
Okay.
was the gap in care that we had identified, as kids who were having behaviors that we could easily see that's the trajectory
That they
that
were
they're
going
on,
in
but they
there.
just hadn't gotten there yet, and so they weren't eligible for juvenile justice.
So do you have, is there a demographic breakdown? Because it seems to me most of the kids that I represent end up in the criminal justice system. So are these wealthier suburban kids that get deferred, or what kind of populations are we talking about here?
Yeah, so my understanding is that MSD has been tested with populations kind of across the gamut. I mean, there's been over 200,000 youth that have participated in it. Here in the state of Indiana, we haven't done this yet, right? So I think that'll be something that we really need to keep an eye on as we do this, is who are the youth that we're serving and how is that representative of the communities that we're in? Because absolutely, if we are seeing that it's only working for families with a higher income status, then that's not what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to have a service that helps all of our youth, especially our youth who are most at risk. So I think that we will definitely be keeping an eye on that. Great point.
The summit you're having,
Yes,
is it already scheduled or?
Yep.
Is it planning?
I invited you at the State of the Judiciary. I did, I said to the entire legislature, it's going to be October 21st, and you are all invited.
What are we talking
I
about?
got a short memory.
That's a whole summit. That's my
Oh.
justice.
October 21st? Where are we?
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Really
all the
informative.
questions.
Chief Justice, where is the mental health summit?
I will send you that. It's going to be, I think it's at the convention center. Convention center. And there'll be a team from Marion County, your county, so you could join your team from Marion County. There'll be a team from St. Joe County that you can join a team as well.
Good.
You too. Yep. You remember, I know you know Senator. I looked right at you.
I know.
All right, we are to strategic priority, child health and safety. There'll be a presentation with the final product, the framework and toolkit. We have Hannah Robinson, Amanda Lopez, and Sharon Shoemaker. Thank you all.
Hi, good morning. I almost wanted to say good afternoon, but we're not quite there yet. Good morning, members of the commission. My name is Amanda Lopez. I'm president of Transform Consulting Group. I'll be kicking off our presentation and then handing it over to my colleagues to share with you. So we're excited to be here today. We're kind of coming to conclusion. We're going into the next phase of finishing what we started as what was a recommendation of this commission, and then getting ready to launch. So I think it's a celebration to be here today. I wanted to share with you a bit more about who our partners are. So we at Transform, we were hired to lead this project and initiative, and then we worked closely with the Villages of Indiana, Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, the Indiana Minority Health Coalition, and then HERD Design Strategy. So it's really been a collaborative process, and I almost forgot, Indiana Department of Child Services, which was a key partner in funding this work. So just a reminder of some of the background of how we got here. So back in 2008, there was a recommendation from the Child Abuse Prevention Subcommittee to have Indiana create a statewide framework of how we could prevent child abuse statewide. This is something that a few other states have tackled, and so they saw this as an opportunity for Indiana to move the work forward. And so then in 2019, a formal recommendation did come out of the commission to suggest that the Department of Child Services agree to fund the development of a framework for the prevention of child abuse and neglect and a toolkit to operationalize and support implementation of the framework. So this all started right before COVID came, which was really exciting, but nevertheless, we persevered and were able to carry on the work. So we were able to convene a statewide advisory team that really was broad and representative of a variety of sectors of both public and private partners, as well as geographic diversity. We kicked off right at the end of 2019, had plans to do in-person convenings, but went virtual and were able to continue the work through 2020 and 2021. And this work group really was the one that kind of helped spearhead moving our work forward today. So in the toolkit, you can see who all was involved, and many members of your agencies were included on that statewide advisory team. This 6-step process kind of shows like what we did over the last 2 years to get to where we have today, this framework and toolkit. And I think shows the collaborative and really stakeholder engaging process that we led. So we convened that advisory team first at the end of 2019, really looked at Chapin Hall at a University of North Carolina, had developed a kind of a plan, a framework of how states could go about doing this work. So we really used that to guide our process, looked at what Colorado and other states have done. Throughout the process, we sought feedback from key communities. So we looked at 8 pilot communities. We worked with those community leaders to get feedback from parents. We really want to understand that parent voice of what are their needs, their challenges, the resources in their communities, as well as community partners who would be the ones we would envision spearheading and implementing this work. So we did a lot of surveys. We wanted to do focus groups, but it was 2020. So we went virtual and still had really diverse feedback across the state. And then we brought all this information and feedback to our advisory team to really figure out, what would it look like to have a framework? What would be the key elements of that? And then what are the tools and resources we needed? And then lastly, develop the plan. And now we're at step 6, where we're excited to launch and share and disseminate this resource. So let me just introduce you a little bit to the purpose was really to have a framework that could carry out our vision, which our vision is all children thrive in safe, stable, nurturing, and supportive families and communities that foster resilience and well-being. And then the framework was really providing that roadmap to help community leaders locally implement this and identify, and our whole focus is on primary prevention, right? So we've spent a lot of time talking about what happened this morning with kids who are already in our system. And so this is really meant to be that more broad, universal primary prevention opportunity that unfortunately we don't see and do enough of, that we can hopefully get further upstream, way at the beginning before any type of child abuse maltreatment occurs. So the goals of the framework and the toolkit is really working to align and coordinate existing prevention efforts. So we learned through this process in our outreach, there's a lot happening across our state. It's not as well communicated or shared or disseminated. So we wanted to get that word out for folks, as well as identify new opportunities and areas that we could focus on through evidence-based best practice work that's happening. So the end result is the framework, which I'll walk you through here in a minute, and then the toolkit. So I believe all of you have these 2 in front of you. So the framework is the 1-pager front and back. We wanted to make it really easy and accessible for folks to understand. There's key elements here. So you can see at the top is our vision statement, and then the principles, the 5 areas that really outline the foundational elements that we believe are true and important when we think about prevention. And then on the back side, we identified 4 outcome domain areas, which include child safety, well-being, and resilience, adult and family stability, well-being, and resilience, consistent high-quality caregiving by all those responsible for meeting the needs of children. And then lastly, we want safe, supportive, and equitable communities. For each of those outcome domain areas, we identified data indicators that we could use to track and monitor progress of accomplishing those. When we looked at selecting those indicators, we really wanted to identify existing data readily available to track the outcome areas. And then lastly, we did a comprehensive review of what are effective prevention strategies, primary, secondary, tertiary, that we could implement in the statewide, so folks could really figure out how could we align our resources, whether it's public or private funding, to carry these efforts out. So that's just the very high level of the framework. And then the toolkit has a lot more resources that I said is really meant to help local community leaders implement it. And so if you look at the table of contents, you can kind of see very quickly at a glance what some of those 4 elements are. We provide just instructions at the beginning of how to use this toolkit. We've adopted a collective impact model and approach, wanting it to be a more collaborative, community-wide effort, partners joining together to spearhead this work. We know that's already happening a lot with our Prevent Child Abuse Councils and coalitions that are formed and organized. And so we explain what that collective impact approach looks like. And then there's several items in the appendix that are available to help folks implement that. So we have the data indicators that I talked about, and then we identify what those data sources are and how you could find that, so you can track and monitor. Some of the feedback we received from community leaders is they were not aware of some of these data elements and whether their community was doing better or worse than their peers across the state. So having that access is readily available. Some other information about, how do you map out what's happening in your community, solicit feedback, and then additional background information about those evidence-based strategies. So that's the toolkit.
Wow.
Yes.
Really impressive. I've never seen anything this thorough. Is somebody going to speak to us on how this is getting rolled out to?
That's coming
I
up.
know.
Okay.
Yes, yep. So I'm going to hand it over now. Any questions first before I pass it on? Hannah Robinson is going to talk about what our dissemination plan is and communication strategy.
Hello. Thanks for having us. So, let me see if I can figure out something. I don't know if that's working.
You just click the forward arrow.
Oh, okay. So I'm new to the remote thing. So, we appreciate being able to come today because you are kind of our first presentation to present the final project outside of our advisory committee. So we're excited to share this information with you, and we're going to be utilizing other opportunities to promote the framework to really, get the word out and make sure that folks are aware that this is available as a resource, so that they can utilize the tools that are provided within the toolkit in their local communities. So we're really going to promote it, build awareness, help individuals utilize the resources within the toolkit to identify data that they can use to identify the needs within their communities. And we're also going to be just making the case for why the framework should be utilized statewide. So some of our strategies, our first thing is we are publishing the framework and toolkit to the DCS website on the DCS prevention page, and the link is included in the PowerPoint. We will be collecting some information from folks that download the toolkit just so we can access them later to see if they have utilized the information for kind of evaluation purposes of the framework. I'm just going to go ahead and open all of these things. The statewide advisory committee is also going to be sharing and presenting the toolkit with their local networks. We had folks from all over the state participate in our state stakeholder group or advisory committee, and they're going to be utilizing opportunities within their local communities to present this information as well. We're also going to be using standard channels to communicate the information, and we'll be partnering with Prevent Child Abuse Indiana in April to do a joint press release. We are also going to be presenting information about the framework at our Institute for Strengthening Families, which is a biannual conference that DCS hosts to provide kind of inexpensive but good education opportunities for all sorts of providers and partners across the state that serve children and families. So I'm going to have Shannon come up and talk to you a little bit more about our implementation plan.
Thanks, Hannah. I'm so excited to be here in person and seeing some of my friends that I haven't seen in a long time. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about the implementation plan. There has been so much work and so much time and effort put into this plan. The last thing we want to do is to see it sit on a shelf. So the implementation plan, okay. So we have available funding. We are really fortunate that the Department of Child Services has given us $25,000 to start the implementation plan. So the idea is that we take the plan and we give technical assistance to communities. We're looking at hopefully 4 communities across the state, and to be very diverse with the communities that we're looking at. As we all know, North Vernon looks very different from Elkhart, looks different from Gary. So to be very, very precise about working with the strengths and needs of the various communities. So we're going to use our Prevent Child Abuse Indiana councils. So we have 45 councils across the state, very active councils, covers 56 different counties. So we're going to use that network to pilot the toolkit. So we're going to provide staff, again, to provide that technical assistance. And if you see, this is pretty dense. I mean, there's a lot in here. So to think that people will pull this plan off the internet and just take it and run with it, I think is not probably realistic, particularly considering all the different options that could be utilized given the diversity of the different communities. So we will have staff, again, we're going to identify 4 communities and go through our councils and roll this out. And I think one of the benefits of this is, again, can be pretty daunting, but if we have a community that can successfully implement a Prevent Child Abuse Awareness event or an activity, and then another county or another community can say, hey, what did they do over there in Columbus? That worked out really well. Or, hey, this was kind of a different idea that they did in Fort Wayne. Maybe we can do that too, just so that we can just kind of almost have a menu of different things, different Prevent Child Abuse Awareness events and activities that communities have rolled out. So we have some requests from you. So some of the requests from you we have is that you share this toolkit in your networks. So that's going to be really, really important. And when we talk about networks, we're talking about local hospital systems, we're talking about your own administrations, your constituents, whoever in your community that you feel could use this and would use this. The other request that we have is that you identify strategies and areas that align with your plans to support the implementation. So this can dovetail with there's a lot of action plans and a lot of plans out there right now, we know. And this doesn't have to be a standalone. So if there are other activities that are going on in your communities or in your administrations that's a good fit, then to let us know as well. And then the other part of that is we're really trying to identify funding. So we have $25,000. We know that's not going to go very far. What we're using the funds for is to pay for staff, to pay for our Prevent Child Abuse Indiana staff to do the technical assistance. And then the other piece of it is once the community comes up with their own plan, their own action plan, their Prevent Child Abuse Awareness plan, then we would like to fund that as well. So a couple of things that have happened around the country. So we looked at Colorado has done this already. Arizona has done something similar as well. And so some of the examples of what communities in Colorado have discovered is really looking at the strengths and the needs in their local community. And one community identified they had a series of children who were badly injured because they weren't correctly strapped into their car seat. Not uncommon, we see this a lot. And so what they did is they used some funds, not a lot of funds, but an awareness campaign where they let folks know in the community, billboards and brochures to say, hey, we're going to partner with the fire department and you can pull in at any time in a fire department and they can see if you're strapped in right. And various other community members that were going to help when they would have come in on Friday evening at the Walmart and we're going to have people check to see if your car seat is properly fitted. So that's just an example of how one community identified needs and did an awareness campaign.
And again, fantastic work. I mean, this is so comprehensive. Isn't it going to require a facilitator in some of these communities to pull these together? So what about Casey? Just looking at funding, looking at Lily, looking at Casey, because you really need, we brought teams from, I think, 40 different counties to do sequential intercept model. And we had the judges lead the team and you bring people for that 911 call through somebody working through their community system. And then we partnered with the Indian Association of Counties because they need this information, but they also, just to give them this, it's too overwhelming.
Agreed.
So we need to look at our different funding sources and possibly look at Casey to pay for some facilitators to facilitate in those pilot counties would just bump this up tremendously. Because where do you start? I mean, that's the issue with child abuse and neglect. You get asked all the time, well, what do we do about child abuse and neglect? Here, you get asked that question a lot. All the time. Okay, and and we say it's a community effort. You can't depend on one government organization to keep kids safe. So I think that we will definitely get this out. I definitely want the judges and Corey probation. I mean, we need to look at this framework, but it's part of in mental health and healthcare. There's so many pieces, but we need a facilitator in these counties. And I don't think the $25,000 is going to get you. a facilitator
No,
if you
it's
count.
not. And so, yeah, so we do believe that the Prevent Child Abuse America, the network that we have across the state can be a real catalyst for this, and using them because they're quite active. They're always looking for kind of new things to do. But funding and time and having, all the people are generally volunteers most of the time on these councils. And really, I think that facilitation and having it coordinated is really important.
Dr. Resnick, I know that DMHA received a lot of grants from the CARES money to kind of almost block grants. Do you know if anything like that would be available to pay for
They have
facilitators?
catalyst grants that they've put out, request for information or request for responses.
Do you think facilitators with regard to implementing this could fall within any of those?
I don't know. I don't know in terms of what the timeframe is for those grants. They are for communities, though. I know there are out there for local communities too, specifically.
Because that was a big dollar. What was the amount that was given to DMHA for?
I think the catalyst, I mean, it's 100 million total, but the catalyst grants or something, I think the ballpark of 20 million.
Chief, I did have a brief conversation with Jay Chowdhury about that funding, and we tentatively agreed to have him present at the next commission meeting how they're using that funding.
Could we ask him in the interim if there's some way that we could pigeonhole facilitators to start looking at trainings on this?
Chief, the other thing I would say, and Terry, I'm assuming Healthy Families is all over this and would be aware of this because we're sending out, home visitors all over the state to support new moms, new families as they're first starting oftentimes to be parents. And this kind of connection, this further training for our home visitation programs, I think would be a great place to start too.
Well, and the benefit is we have healthy families in all 92 counties. And so how do we make that connection and facilitate it? Because they are providers in the home, but how do we connect the dots and equip them with the tools necessary?
And I think specifically like our child fatality review team, there are certain counties that are very high on our list of places that we really are working with them on their child fatality review. And to have some type of a program like this to refer into or to train their local communities.
those for our pilot, for some of our.
So we definitely have that kind of data for you, Shannon, too. But
Oh, that's great.
I see a lot of application here, but I do think it's going to take some trainers and supporters of this in the community to make it happen. Because this toolkit's great, but it's never going to get pulled off by the average person. And
agree.
use, I don't think.
I absolutely agree. And so actually myself and Amanda and Anna are all on the Healthy Families Think Tank, the committee that oversees the Healthy Families. So yes, it's very, very dovetailed with the Healthy Families. I think that's really important, Dr. Box.
And I think it's worth offering it to Nurse Family Partnership also, even though I'm sure they have a lot of this, but this may cover things that they haven't thought about.
And that may connect them to that next piece on the strategy piece that they have.
And I would say too, also in our communication that we identified in our partnership, we did identify a lot of philanthropic partners. As we know, our state is very generous with a lot of, we have a community foundation in every county across our state. And so they were a critical part of our advisory team. And so they are also using their own funding to support many efforts that are prevention related and not as connected to a lot of the public funding that's available and the public resources. So they will be a key partner in identifying and sharing the information to all of our United Ways, all of our philanthropic partners across the state, and then also within DMHA, the systems of care networks that are still active and available. So I think we've identified where some of those existing infrastructure and capacity is already available beyond just some of those traditional methods to try to get this out. But you're right, it goes beyond just sharing it. There's probably a third or a quarter of folks that'll see this, review it, and see how they can apply it. And everybody else is going to need some additional support and TA to carry it on.
Any other questions? Wonderful presentation.
I do have one question, and I apologize if I missed it. But on page 6, there's a map with 9 counties listed. Are those counties different in some way or just being rolled out specifically in those?
So those were the counties that were involved with the pilot as far as soliciting feedback and input. Yeah, so we worked fairly closely with a lot of leaders there.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ready? Jump right in, Julie. Sorry. Poor Terry, she's not gonna sit next to me.
I just have a couple of updates. I think I have mentioned to you before that we were going to embark on a process of evaluating the commission this year in 2022. We got some funding from Casey Family Programs to do that. And I wanted to announce that we have completed an RFP and selected our evaluator. It's actually going to be Amanda from Transform, and some of her team are going to be working with me and hopefully with some of you over this next coming year. And the idea there is to figure out, are we having the impact we want to have as a commission? Are we kind of, fulfilling our mission? And could we be more effective in improving the status of kids in Indiana? That's very, very broad questions. We have some more specific questions. So I wanted you all to know that the contracts are in place for that. And we're going to have a kickoff meeting. If anyone's interested in attending, we'd love to have at least a few commission members, as well as I'll put the word out to our task force and committee co-chairs. Would love to kind of form a little steering committee to work with me and with the evaluators over this year. The initial meeting is going to be on March 11th at 10 a.m. I believe. So if you're interested in attending that, just shoot me an email and I'll make sure that you get the meeting invitation. The purpose of that little steering committee group will be to advise on kind of, who do we need to survey, interview, what information do we need to be collecting to really assess the impact of the commission. Oh, another one of the things we're going to be doing is developing a theory of change for the commission, which if you're not familiar with that, I'll explain the concept another time. But basically like what's our goal and how do we think we're getting there? What are the actions we're taking that are going to carry us to the outcome that we want to see? So it's kind of sort of like a logic model. So evaluation is getting underway. Please let me know if you'd be interested in participating in the steering committee. I don't think it would be a ton of meetings, but like I said, that first one will be on March 11th, and then we'll kind of see how it goes from there, what kind of rhythm we want to set up. But the whole process is to be done this calendar year. And then the only other thing I had was just to give you a quick legislative update. I know everybody's following their own bills, obviously. Some are very high profile. I'm not going to talk about those, but you have an update, a snapshot in your packet. I know it's not terribly easy to read. Once the session is all over, I will condense that and it will be a much friendlier format. But I do keep it updated throughout the session and post weekly on Fridays, kind of the current status. And the bills that are in that list are basically, just from what I see, kind of things that I think would impact kids and families. It's kind of in any of the systems that are involved in the commission. So just to highlight a couple of some of the ones that might be a little bit lesser known, there's a lot of stuff, we've had a lot of discussions here about the workforce that's caring for kids in many different ways, mental health, child welfare, and there are several bills related to that. There's the medical licensure compact, that's 251, the psychology compact, 365. So idea being, right, if somebody's licensed in another state, let's get them here as quickly as we can and let their license go to work here. It's more complicated than that. There's another one on reciprocity, Senate Bill 5. There's audiology and speech language. So lots of that kind of trying to streamline those credentialed professionals who might be able to come from other states. We have a couple of things around career and technical education and higher ed, trying to get more kids to file the FAFSA. We know that there's a lot of kids who don't consider college because they don't think they can afford it, and they just don't even know like the resources that are out there to help them pay for it. And if they file the FAFSA, then they'll learn actually that there are a lot of resources to help them pay for a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree, or even a certificate program. So FAFSA bill is 82. There's a bill around child trafficking, that's 155. That came partly out of the work of our child commercially sexually exploited children subcommittee under the commission. That's been making some recommendations related to that. That's 155. We had 180, which was about appointing attorneys to children in CHIN's cases. That has become a summer study recommendation. So I'll kind of be following that and seeing, what happens to that if that does get assigned to a summer study. That's obviously of great interest to many of the folks here. It could potentially even get assigned to the Children's Commission, or if not, to the interim committee on family and children. There's a bill to make it easier for foster youth to get car insurance. That's 246. Again, we know that Joel mentioned it, we all, those of us who have kids, anticipate helping them as they get older, right? And we know that kids who are aging out of the system don't have lot of those same supports. One of the things you would never think about is how hard it is for a kid to get car insurance if they don't have parents to put them on a plan. So that bill is to try to help with that. What else? We have 1079 to update our state's definition of rape. That's important for this commission because we know that young people are the most common victims, right? And we actually have really bad numbers as a state for teens who are victims of sexual assault. So we want to be paying attention to that. We've been trying to get a subcommittee going under the Child Health and Safety Task Force on that specific issue, and they're finally formed and working on some recommendations for you all on that. Our Medicaid, formal Medicaid expansion, 12 months postpartum is moving. That might have even already passed both sides. I'm not sure. If not, it's very close. That's 1140. Another Medicaid related bill, 1192, has to do with Medicaid services in schools. That's another area that's been identified where we have, kids on IEPs or who need health services in schools, and schools weren't able to really get the full benefit of the Medicaid funding that could be paying for some of those services. So that's an attempt on that. 266 does a number of things to try to help the workforce issue in child welfare provider agencies. I missed one on the workforce. This is Senator Donato's bill 226, right? Isn't that one yours? On practice hours for licensed marriage and family therapists to kind of align it with the national accreditation standards. We looked at that several years ago for some other professions, I think, where Indiana kind of got out ahead of the national bodies and was requiring more hours than what the national standards are requiring. So that would bring it back in line. So that was very fast. I just wanted to highlight a few of those, like I said, kind of the ones that don't necessarily make the news, but I think will make a difference for some of our kids and families.
Don't forget the lead testing for kids, all kids.
Lead testing, that's right. That's when I saw Dr. Box go testify. I thought, oh, it's so nice to see Dr. Box out there again. Yeah, so lead testing, and the idea of that one is to expand it beyond, because right now it's required for kids on Medicaid, but not everybody else. And why? Like all babies are susceptible for that. So it will be offered to all young children.
And it's a real effort to try to eradicate that whole.
Yeah. That's what I've got.
All right, anything else, Julie?
That's it for
All
me.
right, well, thank you all, and thank you for putting up with that noise. I didn't know if I was gonna make 2 hours of that.
I know, it's not like being in a dentist chair. It was really, yeah.
I should have been more assertive from the beginning. I did email them and say, can you have them move to another area? And they did. So we should have taken care of that
You're
soon.
always invited. When you see notice of the executive committee meetings, you're always invited to come to that. And I am excited about the evaluation going to be done on the work. We're not just meeting to meet and talk. We all have busy day jobs. We want to really
This is one of the
study
best
the outcomes
commissions.
of what we're doing. So I think that's going to be really important. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Hey.
Do you remember you shooting up? Oh, it was the Juvenile Justice Reform Task Force. So if they do, or it's this,
But I would come to the March 11th, as long as I'm not so much. Go down to that. Yeah, that's okay, what it is.
Stop.